I was banned on social media, and apparently for the inappropriate use of the application. Who would have expected that out of all places, that application had something inappropriate? So, what I've learned is it takes only one person to send a complaint message to the technical team out of 5,000 matches. All I wanted was to find a partner to help me clean the streets. I took my sustainable practices out of the gallery spaces and academia onto the streets. And the actual act of cleaning, doing the things instead of raising awareness and researching, became so essential, and actually it felt good. 2 of my 6 master's degrees were dedicated to trash, so to call waste. If one of them was in research saving at light industry, and I studied the waste at the production sites, including cut-offs of textiles. Actually, do you know that 15% of your t-shirt ends up on the workshop's floor before it even became a t-shirt? The second one in critical design allowed me to study trash waste from the perspective of a garment that becomes discarded, and the same t-shirt in another 6 months actually ends up the landfill. The combination of those 2 degrees allowed me to look at the waste, so to call trash, from a different perspective. I wanted to use it as a raw material for further productions, to rethink the system in order to close the loop. I believe that, and we know it from the research conducted by Ellen MacArthur's Foundation, that 80% of the product's environmental impact is actually decided at its design stage. So the longevity of the product and its recyclability is based on what we design and what materials we use. I came to the belief that no circular economy is possible without a critical design at its heart. My obsession with waste was at the core of my artistic manifesto that I developed in 2016. So I even upcycled myself. In 1917, I was creating garments out of my brain cells for the London Design Week, for social media avatars in virtual reality. I was ahead of the industry, but upcycling myself in a digital realm didn't change anything in the real world. People were still consuming and discarding faster and faster. And actually, 85% of the textiles annually produced end up in the landfills. So I realized that I need to leave the digital realm. That's when my world tour started with my artistic manifesto, artistic performances and experiments, including plastic and waste-free living. I don't recommend anyone to follow that example, as at some point it became even dangerous for both my life and my mental well-being. On a practical level, I have stopped consuming garments and fabrics around 11 and 9 years respectively. So these self-imposed restrictions allowed me to actually become a different type of designer. And they brought me to the place where I invented the reconstruction of textiles technique, and I developed a library of unique design made out of waste, and by waste I mean literally anything. I once created a collection of jewelry and bags made out of tube television. Imagine that. I don't believe in recycling. I don't believe in fashion as a trend center for us to follow blindly. I believe that we have the power to be responsible for our own style, and that we have the power within us to consume consciously. And that's the only way for us to impact the industry and change fashion forever. They say it all starts with a trauma. I also tell people that. But actually, to acknowledge it, to sit down and revisit my childhood, took some courage. So I was 6 when my mother wasn't sure if I was that serious about my fashion obsession. She said, you can use anything you find if people wouldn't be against. So be creative, outsource your materials. I think it was when I was 11, and I hope she didn't regret that trip to her parents that summer, because when she came back, half of her wardrobe was gone. It wasn't a revenge, no. I needed to research on the color palettes And I just needed to outsource a bit more of material, but I couldn't reach out to her. They had no TV no telephone in that village. So what can I say? I always dreamt of having a roll of fabric. And at the age of 12, I've already mastered how to make a winter coat with the silk lining. It's just because my birthday present came in 2 rolls of fabric. That was the first and the last time I've ever had that much fabric. And actually, it was a dream that I believed like one day I will have this long roll of fabric and cut out dresses out of it, so I don't need to wash, clean, and pick, iron, and mix and match all the combinations. Since I've been recycling, I recycled all the garments of our neighbors, our family friends, and relatives. I can't say I enjoyed recycling at all, but I definitely loved making things. And combining patterns, mixing the textures and colors became my second nature. I knew that there is nothing I couldn't perform technically. So problem solving became just part of me. And I wanted to make as much as possible because it took me to different places. Waste actually took me to different places, to the places I wouldn't have been to. I was 14 years old and I was ashamed to tell people that I was making my own garments out of other people's trash. And I had to stay silent for another 2 decades. 15 I was when I had my first fashion show. And it's later that I've learned that Vivienne Westwood was on the board of juries. I didn't make it up to the finals. And the reason was that my collection wasn't made of the same unanimous piece of fabric. It's later when we had access to the internet and I looked her up and I realized, God, she would definitely appreciate my upcycled pieces that were not that trendy for Russians back then. So since 1999, I lived in this isolating place. On the one hand, I couldn't tell people that I was making stuff, and I had to make it as good so it looked like it's been like ready-made. On the other hand, I couldn't refuse making. It was my everything. It was my space for experiments. It was my therapy. It was the tool for me to make sense of this world. After years of working in fashion industry, and I think it's been like 15 years since that first show, I wanted to leave the industry. I witnessed it all. I worked in countries setting trends, I worked in countries manufacturing fashion for us, I saw the gap, and I realized I couldn't make anything about it. So when leaving the industry, my idea was to create this one piece that everybody would want to have. How naive of me was to believe that if I have collected 100 stories of love and attachments people have towards their garments, and decoding that, I will find the secret. When Fashion Revolution published my book on their website, I knew already it was a fruitless endeavor. So the stories were something like, my grandmother gave me this scarf before she died, or my brother gave me the hoodie before he went to army, and whenever I miss him, I just put it on and I feel like he's hugging me. Or another one, I bought this dress with my mom when traveling, and we finally reconnected. There was no way I could have condensed all those emotional connections and relationship among people into a single piece of garment to please all. So I decided to become an experimental artist. I quit the industry. And I had a number of exhibitions and lectures. People would approach me asking to teach them how to make wearable art. I just defined my role after years of being in the industry and not being the right fit. And becoming a teacher didn't sound that cool back then. Accidentally, the book by Michael Singer appeared to be on my table, The Surrender Experiment. I decided to give it a go and surrender to the world. So when the next request came for me to lead a textile workshop, I surrendered to it and never regretted. That's not your typical textile workshop, actually. That's more of a place where I experimented myself and I take people through my journey. I just set the framework where they define their own creative language, they understand their own meanings, they materialize their emotions and abstract thinking in this world. They co-create this world with me. They take responsibility for the garments instead of discarding them. They use them as the raw material to play around. During one of my first workshops, there was a lady. She looked up at me. I just like to put people on the floor and play around. She looked up at me and she said, "My mother died 10 days ago. And actually, the piece of textiles that I've developed and the place where I placed it, it was the place where her palm touched me for the last time. Do you know that I would never throw away this coat?" So moments like this make me work with all of the people. And I worked with people from all walks of life in different countries. I worked with orphanage kids. I worked with kids from rough backgrounds. I worked with lifetime prisoners, cancer patients, families with kids with disabilities, private schools, top university students, and very successful entrepreneurs. And do you know what they all have in common? The creativity with them. It's only when they know how to tap it. It's only with a bit of a nudge they can get access to it. So when I started, nobody believed in me, even my own mother, right? And I still found my creative language. And I believe you can do it yourself as well. So I dare you to develop your own total black, sexy, fancy look. And next time, come onto the streets with us to clean up the world, one street at a time. I believe that wearable art will save the world because we will take responsibility of the stuff we buy, and instead of throwing away and generating waste, we will play with it. Thank you.